You ever notice how some people make a lot of money, and still feel stuck? Like they've done everything right. The job, the promotions, the long hours. And yet, when they wake up on a random Tuesday morning, their life still doesn't feel like it belongs to them. For a long time, I thought financial independence was just a number. You know, that one magical figure. The one where you finally say, okay, I'm free now. Maybe it's $500,000. Maybe it's $1 million. Maybe it's something even bigger. And the idea sounds simple enough. Earn, save, invest, repeat. Eventually, you cross the line. And life opens up. But here's what nobody really tells you. The number isn't the point. Because if it was, then everyone who hits that number would feel free. And they don't. Some people reach it, and keep working the same way. Same stress. Same schedule. Same pressure. Others never reach it, and somehow build lives that feel far more flexible, far more intentional. So something doesn't add up. Maybe financial independence isn't about how much money you have. Maybe it's about what your money allows you to choose. Let me explain it in a way that actually reflects real life. Imagine two people. Alex and Jordan. Alex makes around $180,000 a year. Good job. Stable career. Clear path forward. From the outside, everything looks solid. But Alex's life is tightly structured. There's a mortgage that stretches things a bit. A car payment that seemed reasonable at the time. A lifestyle that slowly expanded to match the income. Nothing extreme. Just gradual upgrades. Better apartment. Better vacations. More convenience. And now, Alex can't really step back. Not without consequences. Not without discomfort. Not without feeling like something important might fall apart. Now let's look at Jordan. Jordan makes around $70,000 a year. Less than half of Alex. But Jordan designed things differently. The apartment is smaller, but affordable. The lifestyle is simpler, but intentional. There's room to breathe. Jordan has some savings. Not massive, but meaningful. And more importantly, Jordan has flexibility. If work becomes overwhelming, Jordan can step back. If an opportunity shows up, Jordan can explore it. If something needs to change, it actually can. So here's the question. Who's closer to financial independence? The person with more money, or the person with more options? And this is where things start to shift. Because most of us were taught to chase income, not autonomy. We were taught that more money equals more freedom. But in reality, more money often just increases the complexity of your life. Unless you're very intentional about what you're doing. There's a concept that doesn't get talked about enough. It's not about how much you earn. It's about how dependent your life is on continuing to earn at that level. That difference is everything. Think about it like this. If your monthly life requires $5,000 to sustain, then your job isn't just your job. It's your lifeline. You don't just work because you want to. You work because you have to. And that changes how you think. It changes how you make decisions. What you tolerate. What you ignore. You stay in situations longer than you should. You say yes when you want to say no. You delay things that actually matter to you. Not because you're weak, but because your options are limited. Now imagine a different setup. Your life costs $2,500 a month instead. You've saved enough to cover several months, maybe more. Suddenly, something shifts. You don't feel trapped in the same way. Even if your income hasn't changed much. Because now, you have space. And space is what creates choice. This is the part people miss. Financial independence isn't about never working again. It's about not needing to make decisions from a place of pressure. It's about having enough control over your time and resources. That your life doesn't feel like it's happening to you. And if this way of thinking feels different, like it's pulling you out of the usual, earn more, spend more, loop. That's kind of the point. This isn't really about optimizing your finances. It's about rethinking your relationship with them. And if you're someone who's trying to build that kind of clarity over time, you'll probably find yourself coming back to conversations like this. Not for hype, but for perspective. Let's go deeper. Because this idea of options over money sounds nice. But what does it actually look like in real life? It shows up in small decisions. The kind that don't seem dramatic, but slowly shape everything. Like whether you can take a break without panicking. Whether you can walk away from a bad work environment. Whether you can spend time with someone who needs you, without constantly checking the clock. Whether you can explore something new, without immediately thinking, but how will this affect my income? These are the moments where financial independence actually lives. Not in some distant milestone, but in your day-to-day choices. Let's go back to Alex for a second. Alex isn't irresponsible. In fact, Alex did what most people would consider smart. Worked hard. Earned well. Upgraded life gradually. But here's the problem. Those upgrades came with invisible commitments. Longer-term obligations. Higher fixed costs. More things that needed to be maintained. And over time, those commitments started to reduce flexibility. Not all at once. Just little by little. Until one day, stepping back didn't feel like an option anymore. Now compare that to Jordan again. Jordan didn't avoid spending. Jordan just made different trade-offs. Less emphasis on upgrading. More emphasis on keeping life adjustable. So when something changes, Jordan can change with it. This is where financial independence becomes less about wealth, and more about design. Because two people can have the same income, and completely different levels of freedom. There's also a psychological layer to this. And it's subtle, but powerful. When your life is rigid, your thinking becomes rigid too. You start to optimize for stability at all costs. You avoid risk, even healthy risk. You delay decisions that might disrupt your current setup, because the downside feels too heavy. But when your life has flexibility, your thinking changes. You become more open. More willing to experiment. More capable of adjusting. Not because you're fearless, but because you've reduced the cost of being wrong. That's what options really give you. They don't remove uncertainty. They make uncertainty manageable. Let me ask you something. If your income disappeared tomorrow, how long could your current life continue? Not perfectly. Not comfortably. Just continue. A week? A month? A few months? That answer tells you more about your financial independence than your salary ever will. And this isn't about fear. It's about awareness. Because once you see it clearly, you can start adjusting. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because building options doesn't require extreme decisions. It doesn't mean cutting everything out of your life. It doesn't mean living in a constant state of restriction. It just means being intentional. It might look like this. Choosing a lifestyle that leaves margin, instead of maximizing everything. Saving not just for growth, but for flexibility. Thinking about expenses in terms of how they affect your future choices. Asking yourself, is this making my life easier, or harder to adjust? And sometimes, the answers aren't obvious. A higher-paying job might give you more income, but less time. A cheaper lifestyle might give you more flexibility, but less comfort. There's no perfect formula. Only trade-offs. The key is understanding what you're optimizing for. If you're optimizing purely for income, you might end up with a life that looks successful, but feels constrained. If you're optimizing for options, you might earn less, but live more freely. And here's the part most people don't expect. Once you start valuing options, your definition of success changes. It becomes less about how much you make, and more about how much control you have. At some point, this realization clicks. Not all at once. Just gradually. You start noticing things differently. You start asking different questions. Instead of, how can I earn more? You start asking, what would make my life more flexible? Instead of, what can I afford? You start asking, what does this commit me to? And those questions change everything. Because now, money becomes a tool. Not the goal. A way to create space. A way to reduce pressure. A way to design a life that actually fits you. And this is where a second shift happens. You stop chasing independence as a distant event, and start building it into your daily life. You might still work. You might still earn. You might still grow. But you're doing it from a different place. Not from urgency, but from intention. And if this shift resonates with you, if you're starting to see money less as something to accumulate, and more as something to structure your life around, then you're already moving in a different direction. And staying in that mindset, consistently, is what makes the biggest difference over time. So what does this look like in practice? Not in theory, but in real life. It starts small. Maybe you look at your monthly expenses. Not to judge them, but to understand them. Which parts are fixed? Which parts are flexible? Which ones quietly reduce your options? Maybe you build a buffer. Not because someone told you to, but because you want breathing room. Because you felt what it's like to have none. Maybe you delay certain upgrades. Not forever. Just until you're sure they won't limit your flexibility. Maybe you think twice before increasing your lifestyle every time your income increases. Not out of fear, but out of awareness. And over time, these small decisions compound. Not just financially, but psychologically. You feel calmer, less reactive, less pressured. Because your life isn't built on a tightrope anymore. It has room. At the end of the day, financial independence isn't really about escaping work, or hitting a number, or proving anything to anyone. It's about waking up, and knowing your life isn't locked into one path. That if something needs to change, it can. That if you want to pause, you're allowed to. That your time feels like it belongs to you. And you don't get there all at once. You build it. Decision by decision. Trade-off by trade-off. Some days, it won't feel like progress. Some days, it'll feel slow. But that's okay. Because this isn't about speed. It's about direction. And if you keep moving toward a life with more options, even gradually, you're already closer than you think. This kind of thinking has been sitting in the back of your mind for a while. That quiet sense that maybe there's a different way to approach money. Then you're not alone. There are more people starting to question the same things. Trying to build something that feels sustainable, not just impressive. So if you want to keep exploring that direction, not perfectly, just honestly, you'll probably find more clarity in conversations like this over time. Because in the end, it's not about having everything figured out. It's about giving yourself the space to figure things out at all. And that, more than anything, is what financial independence really gives you.